Hi, I'm Carlisle Hashem, a garden enthusiast, interested in the green world of the Victorian flower. The Victorians loved their flowers, and in our economy we love our flowers too, but we cannot necessarily buy all that we want. And yet in the Victorian era they bought as much as they could buy. Even if they didn't have enough money to buy them, they still bought the flowers that were discovered. I want you to enjoy this program, to take away from it at least one little piece of knowledge that the flowers here are flowers that you see in the world around us. Flowers that perhaps are becoming extinct, and scientists are working day in and day out to establish a biodiverse world that will sustain the cousins and husbands and wives of the Victorian flowers. So enjoy. Tulips originated in Turkey. In the 1600s, the bulbs were overvalued. The Victorians loved bright colors, like the leaves of the croton. This beautiful flower is a bird of paradise. Indonesia and India were colonized for tea and spices. Plants were sought after more than silver and gold. Each tribe of the Aborigines in Australia had their sacred grove of bunya trees. Plant collectors had to be patient waiting for a flower to bloom. John Bartram has been called America's first botanist. One plant collector wanted his agent to bring back squirrels with the tree saplings. Magnolias have it all: evergreen leaves, flowers in the spring, and seed pods in the fall. Thomas Jefferson was a well-known plant collector at his home in Monticello, Virginia. "90% of seeds and plants did not survive long journeys overseas. With the invention of the Wardian case in 1834, the likelihood of plant survival increased by 90%. Wealthy plant collectors and nurserymen used greenhouses to cultivate newly discovered plants. Greenhouses captured enough light to assimilate tropical setting for plants. The Wardian case, a glass case hermetically sealed, allowing condensation and evaporation to sustain the plant's life. George Washington had a greenhouse at his home in Mount Vernon. He was a farmer for 48 years of his life. Ferneries and palm houses were popular in the 1800s. People took great pride in the knowledge of their plant collection. Today, greenhouses and conservatories are important for the cultivation of little-known species. The Crystal Palace in 1851 first housed the Great Exposition, and then was moved the following year to Sydenham. Joseph Paxton designed the Crystal Palace inspired by the structure of a lily pad. The glass and cast iron Crystal Palace was prefabricated in 6 months. The Crystal Palace became a model for many greenhouses and conservatories. Joseph Paxton put his 56-pound daughter on one end of the lily pad and an iron pot opposite to test the pad's strength. The public flocked to see the wonders of the world at the Crystal Palace. Hundreds of aspidistras were displayed in the Crystal Palace. Today, scientists are searching China and Southeast Asia to discover new species of Aspidistras. The Victorians loved to vacation down the Nile. The unique design of the Crystal Palace in London served as a model conservatory for years to come. Homeowners of conservatories surrounded themselves with plants to learn and experience lands far away. The Victorians' fascination included the romantic and the macabre. Carl Linnaeus from Sweden developed a universal language to identify discovered plants using binomial nomenclature. Animals were identified in similar fashion. Man was called Homo sapiens. Plants were often identified by dried material in lieu of a living plant. A dried plant collection is called an herbarium. Naturalists were agents of nurserymen. They discovered new plants and drew them in their natural habitat. The drawings were then compiled into catalogs. It was considered illegal to copy others' drawings. Carl Linnaeus was the center of the plant and animal universe. He gave things names. Alexander de Coux walked thousands of miles to catalog plants from over 5 countries. Audubon wired his bird specimen to a tree to paint it in its natural setting. Cherry blossom festivals are the rite of spring. An almost 400-year-old tree, a bonsai tree, gives pause for contemplation. Camille wore a camellia because it had no scent that might irritate the lungs. There was an epidemic of emphysema in Europe then. Charles Darwin was fascinated with orchid pollination. He wrote this book before Origin of the Species. Empress Josephine was known for her beautiful rose garden. Calla lilies, their beauty says it all. Black-eyed Susans are the state flower of Maryland. Virginia bluebells, a wonderful spring perennial. Victorian Gardens. The Victorian style of gardening used a parterre edging to outline bright annual flowers. It was called bedding out. Garden writers like Loudon and Downing influenced the owner's garden design according to the style of the house. The flower played a central role in the design of the arts and crafts movement. Florigraphy was a special language of flowers. Carter's catalog in 1898, the color and print more advanced than in 1837. A garden was a way for the Victorians to show their wealth and gain them status. Jane Loudon and her husband John Claudius wrote about Victorian plants and gardens. This formal garden has a romantic, informal backdrop of trees in their natural setting. Andrew Jackson Downing's book was a reference guide, How to Build a House and Matching Garden. William Morris's designs reflect the Victorians' love of flowers. Emily Dickinson's poetry is filled with references to flowers. The Victorians loved nature, here displayed on the table and chairs at Ledoux Topiary Gardens. The National Arboretum of England, Westonbirt, is propagating their Victorian rhododendrons by air layering. Florography, the art of speaking with a flower. The Victorians were reticent to show their emotions. Flowers helped them say things that they would otherwise not be able to say in public. They spoke to each other through the language of flowers. Pink carnation, I'll never forget you. Each rose had a different meaning. Coral rose, desire. Ranunculus, you are radiant with charm. Chrysanthemum, I love. Can you imagine a cabbage means profit? This is when you want to know who sent these flowers to whom. Sunflower, pure and lofty, just like a butterfly.